Today on an all-new Dr. Phil Daytime exclusive.
Justina's parents and doctors continue to clash over her treatment.
These doctors are playing God.
They're evil.
They claim their daughter was held hostage.
I actually called 911 and said Boston Children's Hospital is about to kidnap my daughter.
Then they lost custody of her.
They're tearing our family apart.
I wanted to talk to your wife today.
She is emotionally a wreck.
Linda Pelletier collapsed upon hearing a judge order her teenage daughter into foster care.
DCF doesn't take child for no reason. They have to be implying you are making her sick.
Is the hospital making her worse
Before she was ice skating, now she can't even stand up.
or saving her life?
Are your parents a danger to your sister? Let's do it.
Have a good show, everybody. Here we go.
I hate to see people suffering, and you've hurt long enough.
Stand by, Dr. Phil.
Take
I'm going to get you the help that you need.
5, 4.
This is going to be a changing day in your life. Hundreds of letters and phone calls have been pouring into our offices from viewers asking for my help with a 15-year-old girl who was caught in the middle of a custody tug-of-war between her parents and the state of Massachusetts. Now, here are some of the calls and emails we have received from viewers. Take a look.
Have you seen the story about Justina Pelletier? I'm not sure who, other than you, could help this poor girl and her family.
Hi, Dr. Phil. My name is Becky. Please, please, please do something and help this family because they need it. Parental rights are being stomped on all over in this case.
Dr. Phil, my name is Renata. Parents have a right to choose their children's physician and to follow that physician's advice. Please, Dr. Phil, please help this family.
I don't know of a stronger child advocate than you. This child needs a voice and a loud one.
Okay, so who is Justina Pelletier? Well, she is a 15-year-old girl who is currently caught in the middle of a year-long custody battle between her parents and Boston Children's Hospital after she was taken away from her mother and father, apparently over a disagreement about a diagnosis.
15-year-old Justina Pelletier's parents say their daughter suffers from mitochondrial disease, a controversial disorder that brings on chronic fatigue and severe digestive problems. Well, the state of Massachusetts took charge of Justina as her parents and doctors at Children's Hospital continue to clash over her diagnosis and treatment.
Justina was diagnosed with mitochondrial disease by Tufts. The Pelletiers brought Justina into the Children's Hospital ER last February, where they say doctors quickly cast aside her diagnosis, instead concluding her problems were of psychiatric origin. Children's brought in DCF and the state took custody of Justina, essentially ruling her parents were committing child abuse by pursuing medical rather than mental health treatment.
DCF takes control of somebody, and you just fall into this deep rabbit hole, and there's no way out.
Paramedics wheeled Linda Pelletier from the courthouse this afternoon, minutes after she collapsed upon hearing a judge order her embattled teenage daughter into foster care. While Justina's parents obey a judge's gag order, this minister says the teenager's condition continues to worsen.
They want their daughter with them. There's no argument that she was doing better under their care than under the care of the government.
Children's has declined comment on the complicated case, other than insisting it has the patient's best interests at heart.
Well, Lou and Linda say Boston Children's Hospital kidnapped their daughter, and now they are only allowed to see her for about an hour a week under the supervision of DCFS and a state trooper.
We were escorted out of the hospital by security guards and given a no trespassing, that if we ever came on the property again without permission, we could be arrested.
I feel she's been kidnapped from me and our family.
It was surreal. We showed up at court. The first thing the judge said was, Justina Pelletier is at Boston Children's, so she must be safe there. So for 2 months, we went through this horrific legal nightmare with the City of Boston and the Department of Children and Families. But despite the overwhelming evidence, the judge just said, Massachusetts Department of Children and Families has proved their case. That day in court was pure pandemonium. My wife was overcome with grief and literally passed out on the floor right outside the courtroom.
DCF and Boston Children's Hospital are very mean people. They're evil. I do think that Boston Children's Hospital is trying to cover for the mistakes.
Over the last 4 to 6 weeks, our visits have been literally like we're walking into a prison. We are only allowed to see Justina for 1 hour a week, and each visit is totally supervised.
To get our daughter back, we tried everything under the sun. I went to the FBI, the Attorney General, and the Health Department. Hardly any of them would talk to me.
A gag order was placed. We could not speak to any media. For 2 months, I abided by that. It just came to a point where I felt I had no other alternative. If I didn't make the public aware of what was going on, I was sealing Justina's death sentence. I decided to break the gag order. I was not about to let this legal system cause the death of my daughter. I was willing to do whatever I needed to do to save my daughter's life.
Well, Justina's parents say her health has been neglected since the government took custody of their 15-year-old Justina, and they fear that the damage being done is irreparable.
Justina's health was fine. In fact, she did a number of figure skating shows. The child was healthy, thriving, and in 13 months, her health has gone to near death.
There's no muscles left in her neck.
Now she's in a wheelchair, paralyzed below the hips.
Her legs are blown up like balloons.
I definitely feel these doctors are playing God with my daughter. The fact that they are continuing to abuse her medically and psychologically, that Boston Children's is doing that, is mind-boggling.
Okay, Lou, I'm glad you're here.
Thank you.
Because this needs to be talked about. Now, the gag order has been lifted.
Yes, it has been lifted.
All right, and you've chosen here to come and talk about this. Why here, why now?
If there was ever a person to talk about the abuse of psychological over medical, it's going to be Dr. Phil.
Well, I'm glad that you did. Let me start with this. What happened the night that you were escorted from the hospital? What triggered you and your wife being escorted out of the hospital by security? Why did someone do that?
We arrived at the hospital February 10th because we went to Boston Children's for one reason only. Her stomach doctor, one of the world expert leaders on GI motility, had left Tufts to go to Boston Children's.
You went there to follow him there?
Follow him. But when we got to the emergency room, and a young neurologist came along and said, what she has, there's no such thing as mitochondrial disease. And we're just going to try a new approach. So for the first couple of days, we said, sure, we're game. We'll try anything if it's going to help get her better. But Wednesday, February 13th, that's when the world changed. And they said, we're going to stop all our medications. We're not going to be doing any more diagnosing. We're not going to be speaking to any other doctors, including her Tufts doctors. And I said, time out. So the next day, February 14th, Valentine's Day, I went up there with my other daughter, who has mito, and we went to discharge her. And they hemmed and hawed. We were at the main nursing station. And I could see out of each corner of my eye, security guards here, there, everywhere. So I said, this is smelling bad. So I actually called the Boston police, 911, and said, Boston Children's Hospital is about to kidnap my daughter. So they came in. We get brought into a little room where the young neurologist and the young psychologist say, we have decided to call the Department of Children and Families because we feel you're risking your daughter's safety by not following our protocol, which is what your daughter has is not medical, it's psychological.
At that point, then you are escorted from the building.
We are given by a number of security guards. They escort my wife and my daughter out of the building, and we're given a no trespass. If we ever show up on the property again unauthorized, we will be arrested.
All right, so they have to have assumed or implied that you were a threat to your daughter, other than just you won't follow this protocol. Were they saying you were making her sick on purpose?
No.
Were they saying that you were abusing her or neglecting her in any way?
Not at all.
They were saying that it was medical abuse because you had the surgery done that you had done?
Yes, there was a total of 2 procedures basically done to her. One when about 4 years earlier, she had the stomach blockage. They were just going to take out her appendix. But when they went inside, there was 20 inches of cartilage wrapped around her colon and appendix, something called a congenital band. So they took it out, and we thought that was the end of her stomach problems.
Okay. But their implication is that she really doesn't have anything wrong with her, so therefore you as her parents are having her cut open and operated on when there's nothing wrong with her.
Everything was medically verified, and I always say insurance approved, because nothing would be done.
Next, Justina's sisters also believe their sibling is being isolated and abused. We're going to meet them next, and we'll be right back.
Justina and I both share the same illness. She's not making this up.
My sister is deteriorating before my eyes.
I don't understand why the doctors refuse to let her go home.
And later, you know as well as I do that it is good public policy for children to remain with their biological parents.
Absolutely.
That is good public policy. Yeah. But we also know that there are pathological family units.
Tomorrow on Dr. Phil. They don't like their brother's fiancée.
If Shannon shows her face at this house, I'm gonna knock her out. I'm not going to let just anybody marry my brother. You don't have to like me.
You guys are so not ready to get married.
She has an attitude with his family.
None of us are invited to the wedding?
And with the show.
Everything that's been said is everything I already know.
Well, maybe I'm just not smart enough to keep up with you.
That's tomorrow.
When I go and visit Justina for 2 days, I can't sleep at night.
There is no private conversation. You can't speak to her about medical. You can't speak to her about so many things. First Amendment, thrown out the window. We're being told don't whisper to her, and we'll say, wait a minute, we're telling her we love her.
She said, Mommy, I'm in prison now.
This abuse of power has to stop.
Well, that was Lou talking about his 1-hour weekly visits with his daughter Justina after she was taken away by the state of Massachusetts Department of Child and Family Services. Now, before she was taken, was she ambulatory?
Absolutely. Ice skating, playing with the dogs, going to school.
We have video of her right here. I can't do that.
Come on.
There's got to be a portion of the viewers right now saying, look, DCFS just doesn't come in and take child for no reason. They have to be saying words like Munchausen by proxy or enabling, or so they have to be implying, accusing, or insinuating that you guys are making her sick in some way.
Massachusetts DCF does not have their own medical director. So who does Massachusetts DCF rely on? Boston Children's Hospital. They can just, as a mandated reporter, report to the DCF that somebody's violating their protocol, and once they take that child, there's not a damn thing you can do about it.
Let me introduce Dr. Charles Sophie here. Dr. Sophie is the medical director for the Los Angeles Department of Child and Family Services. This is the largest DCFS in the country, correct?
Yes.
Do they not have to have an immediate danger to this child in order to take the child from the parent?
Yes. They will identify either a real safety risk, like this happened, and they can identify, or there's a question mark about enough stuff that they can hold her for the 72 hours until they get the investigation done.
Okay, and I don't see any of that here, is my point.
Right. Where are your doctors not stepping up for you from Tufts?
They're blocked out.
Are they fighting for you, though, if they can?
As much as they can, but they're all blocked. They're employees of the hospital.
Yeah.
All right, now, I want to take a look at this, get the sister's point of view. Here's what Lou's daughters, Jennifer, Jessica, and Julia say about Justina.
Mitochondrial disease is 100% real. Justina and I both share the same illness. I was the one first diagnosed with it. It affects every part of your body. Hearing the doctors at Boston Children's Hospital say that mitochondrial disease is non-existent makes me so angry.
They should not have power to take a child away because two hospitals disagree in a diagnosis. Get a second opinion if you don't believe what the other hospital said.
My sister is deteriorating before my eyes. I know on one occasion, Justina was actually put into a walking harness device to force her to walk. She's fallen over.
She's losing her hair. It's caused by stress.
Because Boston Children's has taken Justina off her medicine, she looks horrible. If you see the before and after pictures of her, she looks nowhere near like she did before.
This entire situation is beyond criminal.
Well, Jennifer and Jessica are here today. Their other sister, Julia, could not attend. Okay, so y'all are adults. You live on your own, make your own decisions. You grew up in this household. Are your parents a danger to your sister?
None whatsoever. I come from a loving family. We were all very supportive of each other, and this is just crazy.
What do you think's going on here?
They're tearing our family apart. I don't understand how this is still going on. Everything we've done has been medically proven, verified, doctor's orders, and it's disgusting. This needs to stop, and we need to get her home and get her the treatment she desperately needs.
How's your sister doing now compared to when she was taken away?
Before we took her, she was in ice skating shows, as you see. Now, she's paralyzed. She can't even stand up.
Dr. Sophie, we have blood relatives that are adults. If you're saying that, okay, we can't give custody and allow the right of the parents to dictate medical care, then why not place her with a family member?
Because they're using their power. But there's no real found evidence of any malpractice on your side of you medicating her, taking her medicines. There's no history of that. Did they interview you guys at all, DCFS?
Mass DCF, and this is important, never came to our house.
They never interviewed you and your wife?
Never
interviewed either of you two?
Not even on the phone?
No.
I want to introduce Dr. Travis Stork. Dr. Stork is the host of the Emmy Award-winning television show, The Doctors. He's an emergency room physician, and he's joining us today to talk about mitochondrial disease. First off, is mitochondrial disease a real disease?
Mitochondria truly are the power plant of every cell in your body except for your red blood cells. So you take the food you eat and the oxygen you breathe in, and the mitochondria make the energy that your cell uses to do whatever it has to do. Because if you think about it, mitochondria are in every major organ. So you can have neurologic problems, you can have gastrointestinal problems, you can have muscle weakness, and some people severe even paralysis. It can affect virtually every system in your body, and that's why it is so confusing. That's why there can be disagreement amongst medical experts.
Now, you filed a writ of habeas corpus to get her released, right?
Last summer.
The psychologist testified that she has this somatoform disorder, correct?
Yes.
A neurologist from Children's Hospital testified that, no, she had conversion disorder.
Yes.
So they're disagreeing with themselves?
Absolutely.
Would either of those constitute hospitalization ordinarily?
No.
The psychologist, who I've not met, so I have no opinion about her competencies whatsoever, is she doing a research program on somatoform disorder?
She has written 4 papers that we know of on somatoform research, including one paper that said 50% of all pediatric patients have somatoform.
I've always said, no matter how flat you make a pancake, it's got 2 sides. So I'm sure there is another side to this story that they would tell. Next, we're going to meet the director of the Christian Defense Coalition and find out why he says Justina is being treated like a piece of property. We'll be right back.
You're right, Dr. Phil. You would say, all right, let's accept this argument to be true. Then how do we get counseling to bring the family together?
Where's the
How do we
reunification plan?
Exactly.
That's all I'm saying. If it's true, where's the reunification plan?
Dr. Phil, can you get on a plane and come to Boston with us? We'll all chip in and get your tickets. Come on. We're begging you.
And later, from a legal standpoint, let's assume the hospital had a good faith basis for concern. They had a good faith basis that, wait, we got Munchausen's going on here. We've got some kind of enablement going on here. We got something not right in this family. then would the protocol not then require to do a careful and independent evaluation? We're talking about a family's plight that is currently gripping the headlines. Lou says his 15-year-old daughter, Justina Pelletier's health is hanging by a thread. Now, the director of the Christian Defense Coalition, Reverend Patrick Mahoney, was in the courtroom when Justina Pelletier's mother, Linda, fainted. He says he caught her before she was eventually placed on a stretcher and taken to the hospital. Here's his connection to this story.
For 13 months, the Pelletiers have been living a nightmare. Their loving daughter ripped from them. Seeing a girl who was ice skating 13 months ago and now can't even walk. I have never heard of a family following medical protocol and having their child taken from them because they were following what the doctors told them to do. Justina Pelletier is being treated like a piece of property. There is no question that the rights of Justina and her family have been violated. Justina needs to be reunited with her family now.
Well, Reverend Mahoney is here. What's going on here?
One of the problems we have with this is it's easier for us and safer for us to believe that the parents did something wrong. And the alternative is that the government moved in with impunity in front of everyone and removed this child from a loving home. But that's exactly what happened. Look at Justina 13 months ago, skating, enjoying her life, under her parents' care. One would assume after 13 months she would be better, being healed. Just the opposite has happened. That's why we are involved.
You know as well as I do that it is good public policy for children to remain with their biological parents.
Absolutely.
That is good public policy. Yeah. But we also know that there are pathological family units.
Of course.
And I've always said when you come to child abuse, you have to do a false positive situation. Instead of innocent until proven guilty, you have to assume something's wrong until you prove it isn't. In this situation, I would speculate that the hospital would say, look, these parents are keeping this girl sick. These parents are enabling her. They're rewarding her for sick behavior. They're taking her to doctors. They're coaching her. They're pressuring the doctors. And they're cutting this little girl up. She's had surgeries. Then she had another surgery. And we can't stand by and let that happen anymore. Okay, let's assume that's right. Then wouldn't there be an investigation? Wouldn't there be a finding of fact and a finding of law? Would they have not, Dr. Sophie, had to interview the parents and the family members, collaterals to the situation, to determine whether or not someone, after a 25-minute interview, had made a right decision?
Absolutely. They should have called Connecticut DCFS to go investigate your home.
Let's assume, for argument's sake, that they are correct. Then wouldn't they intervene, require therapy, do something to prepare this family for reunification?
You're right, Dr. Phil. You would say, all right, let's accept this argument to be true. Then how do we get counseling to bring the family together?
Where's the reunification plan?
Exactly.
That's all I'm saying. If it's true, where's the reunification plan?
Dr. Phil, can you get on a plane and come to Boston with us? We'll all chip in and get you a ticket. Come on. We're begging you.
Well, look, we've been talking about how Lou and his family accused Boston Children's Hospital of abuse and power. We're going to hear what they do have to say about that next. We're also going to hear from a child advocate that you think I'm passionate? Wait till you meet her. We'll be right back.
And they're putting the parents in the middle of this, and they're dueling diagnosis from two different, very respected institutions. So now the family somehow is being blamed and faulted because they followed the Tufts recommendation. That just doesn't make any sense.
And later, I wanted to talk very much to your wife today. Is she not wanting to discuss this, not wanting to talk about it? Do you wish she was here? Jennifer and Jessica say Massachusetts state doctors continue to torture their 15-year-old sister Justina and neglect her medical care to the point where her body is completely deteriorating. Now, there have been a lot of words used here like torture and kidnapping and all of that. And, you know, I would probably be saying the same thing if I had 13 months of frustration. I have a hard time imagining that trained professionals that save lives every day have some evil intent. Now, we do have a statement from Boston Children's Hospital. We reached out to them. Robert Graham, Media Relations from Boston Children's Hospital, sent us the following statement. We are pleased with the progress our patient Justina Pelletier made when she was at Boston Children's and with her continued progress. Boston's Children's and our clinicians are particularly distressed that the inaccuracies surrounding this case have caused undue concern for the many children and their families with mitochondrial disorders in our care. Misleading and inaccurate reports around diagnosis and treatment have created undue concern. Reports that the hospital holds patients in its inpatient psychiatric unit against the will of the patient's parents are also inaccurate, as such reports ignore the involvement of the juvenile court system and the authority of the DCF as the legal guardian once the court has ordered a change in custody. The mitochondrial program at Boston Children's was established in 2000. The estimated prevalence of mitochondrial disorders, MD, is about 11.5 out of 100,000. Boston Children's clinicians regularly diagnose and treat patients for MD in accordance with the accepted standard of medical care. The diagnosis of MD is a complex process. Diagnostic tools include patient and family history, physical evaluations, neurological testing, biochemical testing, genetic studies, and muscle biopsy. Patients' privacy prevents the hospital from commenting further. So they basically say nothing about this case except that everything that's being reported in the media is riddled with inaccuracies. Yeah. How do you feel about Boston's Children's Hospital saying they're pleased with her progress then and now?
That's disgusting.
It is beyond disgusting. You see the pictures. What Justina has, what Jessica has is mitochondrial disease. Boston Children's, let her go. Massachusetts DCF, stop it, let her go. I want to introduce Areva Martin. She's a Los Angeles-based family law attorney and child advocate. She says the dispute between two medical facilities should not be grounds for DCFS to intervene and take Justina.
This is an example of the system gone wrong, Dr. Phil. There is no reason whatsoever this child should not be in her home. We've heard two doctors here today say whatever her condition is, she could be treated at home. So why is she in a hospital? And now they're talking about foster care rather than returning her to this dad and this family. We cannot even wrap our arms around what's happening. No evaluation, Dr. Phil, you know, from an independent assessor could have been done easily. No evaluation by an independent psychologist to verify that even the information Boston Hospital is telling us is even accurate. And that would be one quick way to get to the bottom of this.
Well, this is my point, Areva. From a legal standpoint, let's assume the hospital had a good faith basis for concern. Yes. They had a good faith basis that, wait, we got Munchausen's going on here. We've got some kind of enablement going on here. We got something not right in this family. Then would the protocol not then require to do a careful and independent evaluation, do a deep dive on medical records, find out if this child is over-medicalized, do a deep dive and find out if there's a psychiatric history here, do a deep dive and find out if in fact there are dangers within the home, and then intervene to change those in a reunification plan for this family?
Absolutely, Dr. Phil. And they're putting the parents in the middle of this, and they're dueling diagnosis from two different, very respected institutions. So now the family somehow is being blamed and faulted because they followed the Tufts recommendations. That just doesn't make any sense.
All right, well, let's take a quick break. When we come back, I want to talk about why Justina's mother, Linda, has not been comfortable, has talking to the media when Lou, in fact, has been so vocal. We'll be right back.
The court has crushed our hopes too many times to count.
They have never tried to unite our family back together. I have asked numerous times. They said, we're not ready. I said, how do you know if we're ready or not? You guys don't even know me. You've never met us.
To have a judge play with your emotions like a yo-yo, giving us a false sense of hope that we might be able to get our daughter back, to just pull it back has pushed us to the emotional brink.
Well, we're talking to Lou, who is currently in a custody tug-of-war with the state of Massachusetts over his 15-year-old daughter, Justina. He and his wife, Linda, and other daughters, Jessica, Jennifer, and Julia, all claim and agree that Justina has mitochondrial disease. But Boston's Children's Hospital claims that Lou and Linda committed medical child abuse after they determined Justina's issues were psychosomatic. The judge intervened and awarded the state custody of Justina. And the fight has been going on for now 13 months.
February 14th of last year.
I wanted to talk very much to your wife today. Is she not wanting to discuss this, not wanting to talk about it? Do you wish she was here?
I wish she was here. She is emotionally a wreck. You all saw the video of her passing out. She is at her brink. And to watch her own child be tortured physically and mentally, to have a court system play tiddlywinks with her life, it's been too much for her to handle.
As I've said, in fairness, we do not have someone here from Boston Children's Hospital. They say, and I do understand this to a degree, that because this is a minor, that they're unable to talk about what's going on and what the thinking is and what their care is in treating Justina. I'm sure they have a different point of view here. I've tried to articulate it, but my point has been, even if you said for argument's sake that every consideration that they have, every warning sign that said this child is in jeopardy in the hands of these parents, that they would be duty-bound, Dr. Sophie Arriva, to do an investigation. Absolutely. And you're saying here on public television, public record, you're saying you have not been interviewed by these people. They did not call you. They've not done a home study. They didn't interview you. Didn't interview your wife. Didn't interview you.
My wife has actually asked them over for dinner, for crying out loud.
We also reached out to the Massachusetts Department of Child and Family Services several times. They have not returned any of our calls, which, again, is not a real surprise because they are dealing with minors here, and it's very difficult for them under legislative mandate to be able to talk about this publicly, but you could certainly do it in chambers with the judge. You could do it to an ad litem. You could there's a lot of things that could go on, and maybe some of that is going to start happening. But we certainly wish you the best, Lou. I'm glad you came here
Dr.
and talked about this.
God bless you. Thank you so much.
All right, next, we're going to switch gears slightly and talk to a woman who says she struggles with the guilt of being alive, despite beating the odds of her deadly medical condition. We'll be right back. Holly says she was living a healthy life as wife and mother to 3 sons when she was hit with some devastating news.
I'm a fitness instructor. I never imagined that I would get breast cancer. I was diagnosed in 2009. It had been growing for a while. I did not know of any breast cancer in my family history. The year prior to that, I had had a mammogram. It wasn't found. As a result of the delayed diagnosis, my cancer became invasive. My surgeon recommended that I have bilateral mastectomy. I ended up beating cancer. However, in 2013, I felt a new lump in the same area. The second diagnosis was much more shocking. It is more aggressive the second time. I had 18 weeks of chemotherapy, and then I had 33 rounds of radiation. I am angry that I got cancer again. I feel guilt. I don't want to be that angry, mad at God person.
Well, Holly is joining us today along with Holly Jacobs. So we have two Hollies. Holly Jacobs is the author of a new book called The Silver Lining. And she was also diagnosed with breast cancer. Why did you write this book, and what's your objective?
I wrote this book because after I was diagnosed, I looked for a lifeline and a guide to help support me through this process. Despite the fact that I am a nurse and a social worker and a child development specialist, I too felt lost, as though I needed something to really help not only me but also my family and friends through this process, and that book simply didn't exist.
You wrote the book, The Silver Lining, which is so well done. And Holly, when you first got diagnosed, what was your first reaction?
It was a real shock.
And the shock that she's feeling is what you're talking about in here. You're talking about, look, here's the dialogue you have with yourself. Here are the things that you need to think about and look for at that time to give you that spiritual energy to get through.
Absolutely. And the physical and the intellectual. You know, a cancer diagnosis is so incredibly overwhelming. It was overwhelming for me even as a clinician, but moving from the side of the hospital bed into the bed gave me a whole new perspective on the patient experience. And so I firsthand felt all of the feelings of being overwhelmed and confused. And I realized that there was no place, no book, no guide to really just bring everything down into accessible, relatable information that people could use.
But you had a second diagnosis.
Yes.
Right? This came because the first time there were certain organs affected. Second time you went back, and this time took all the lymph nodes, right?
Yes.
Okay, now you talked about anger and guilt at that point, which people, I can understand the anger. The guilt is something that you don't, well, you see coming, but that's why she wrote the book. But talk about the guilt.
Well, the first time I was diagnosed, I just had such a great attitude. And I just felt like, I'm going to fight this. I'm going to help other women. I wanted to be a very positive example to my sons. That was so important to me. But when I was diagnosed in 2013, it was just so different. I was really angry. And that anger really made me feel guilty because I'm alive. And I didn't feel that I had the right to be angry. And so I feel like, who am I to even ever feel angry?
I remember when I was going through everything, I had the same feelings of anger and sadness and survivor guilt. And the first thing that I did was normalize those feelings, sort of accept them. Yes, I'm really angry. Yes, I'm really sad. I feel really sorry for myself. Process those, because unfortunately, if we don't process them, they're going to come up eventually. And so to go through that pain of processing emotions gets you to the other side.
Look, a copy of Holly Jacobs' book, The Silver Lining, is in bookstores tomorrow. And by the way, everybody in the audience is getting a copy of this book, okay? And Holly, thanks for that. We'll be right back. So many viewers have questions from the simplistic to the complex, but one of the most common questions deals with how to cope with getting older. Now, Danny just turned 50 and wrote to me saying her sun-worshiping days, well, they've caught up with her.
They say that 50 is the new 30, but let's face it, if you're a woman, particularly in certain parts of the country, 50 is the new 90. My greatest fear is that my skin and my face are going to go into some sort of free fall and that there won't be anything that I can do to stop that process. I was a sun goddess back in the day before people started talking about UVA and UVB and sun damage. Didn't know about the word sunscreen. In fact, I wanted to accelerate the process with baby oil. Now I see the results of that when I look in the mirror. I see an older face looking back at me. I'd like to be able to preserve what I've got, minimize some of the damage, and to prevent further damage. Dr. Phil, can you help me ease into my new decade?
So I sent Danny to meet beauty expert Jamie Krell to learn about a skincare product from Boots number 7 that could help her out. Here's how it went.
Hi, Danny.
Hi.
It is so nice to meet you. I want to start off first and foremost and get right into it and hear from you what you're experiencing with your skin.
Okay, well, I just turned 50. It's a pretty big milestone for me, and looking in the mirror, I see myself and my skin just isn't what it used to be. And I feel that I'm struggling to embrace it.
Well, you are not alone. There are millions of women all over the world who are experiencing the exact same thing. But I think I have something for you that is really going to help. Before I show you, though, I want you to show me the areas that are of most concern for you.
Well, I got these lines here in the middle of my forehead that don't go away. I have these deepening crow's feet here, and then lines under my eyes. I've got the side of this nose line stuff going on, and then I have this discoloration on the sides of my cheeks.
Well, I have a product. I think it's really going to help change your skin. I want to show it to you. It's from Boots number 7. It's called their Protect and Perfect Intense Serum. It really works.
Great.
This is actually clinically proven to diminish the appearance of those deep lines and wrinkles in just 4 weeks. When Good Housekeeping actually launched their first ever anti-aging beauty awards, this product won Best Serum and it earned the Good Housekeeping seal of approval. Now I want to show you how easy and simple this is to use. All you're going to do is put a little pea-sized amount right in between your fingertips, and this is after your normal usual cleansing.
Okay.
Morning and evening, and you're just going to do upward strokes onto your face. Make sure forehead, nose, cheeks, chin, and go down to your neck. Don't forget your neck either. And I love this because it's so easy and accessible to get. It's right at Target, and the best part, it is $24.99. Well, Danny, I want to wish you a very happy birthday.
Thank you.
Boots number 7 wants to supply you with a year's worth of skincare and cosmetics.
That's great. Thank you.
I hope Danny enjoys the new chapter in her life and embraces her 50s. And to keep in the celebration, you're all going home with the same product from Boots. For more information, visit drphil.com for a special exclusive offer from Boots. Thank you, Jamie, and Boots number 7. Well, I want to thank all of our guests today, and a special thanks to family law attorney and child advocate Ariva Martin. Ariva, thank you. This is just right up your alley. And this is just what she does. Also, special thanks to Dr. Charles Sophie, medical director for the Los Angeles Department of Children and Family Services, co-host of the award-winning television show The Doctors, and emergency medicine physician Dr. Travis Stork. Thanks, Travis. And also thanks to the author of Silver Lining, Holly Jacobs. And a special thanks to our medical team at Doctor On Demand for assisting some of my team in preparation for the show. And if you at home want to have your own Doctor On Demand, Jay and I have created an app for that. You can go to Google Play or the App Store and download the Doctor On Demand app. And then on your smartphone, you can be face-to-face with a board-certified physician. We'll see you next time. Thanks a lot. Thanks, guys.
Today on an all-new Dr. Phil Daytime exclusive.
Justina's parents and doctors continue to clash over her treatment.
These doctors are playing God.
They're evil.
They claimed their daughter was held hostage.
I actually called 911 and said Boston Children's Hospital is about to kidnap my daughter.
Then they lost custody of her.
They're tearing our family apart.
I wanted to talk to your wife today.
She is emotionally a wreck.
Linda Pelletier collapsed upon hearing a judge order her teenage daughter into foster care.
DCF doesn't take child for no reason. They have to be implying you are making her sick.
Is the hospital making her worse
Before she was ice skating, now she can't even stand up.
or saving her life?
Are your parents a danger to your sister? Let's do it.
Have a good show, everybody. Here we go.
I hate to see people suffering, and you've hurt long enough.
Stand by, Dr. Phil.
I'm going to get you the help that you need.
In 5, 4,
This is going to be a changing day in your life. Hundreds of letters and phone calls have been pouring into our offices from viewers asking for my help with a 15-year-old girl who is caught in the middle of a custody tug-of-war between her parents and the state of Massachusetts. Now, here are some of the calls and emails we have received from viewers. Take a look.
Have you seen the story about Justina Pelletier? I'm not sure who, other than you, could help this poor girl and her family.
Hi, Dr. Phil. My name is Becky. Please, please, please do something and help this family because they need it. Parental rights are being stomped on all over in this case.
Dr. Phil, my name is Renata. Parents have a right to choose their children's physician and to follow that physician's advice. Please, Dr. Phil, please help this family.
I don't know of a stronger child advocate than you. This child needs a voice and a loud one.
Okay, so who is Justina Pelletier? Well, she is a 15-year-old girl who is currently caught in the middle of a year-long custody battle between her parents and Boston Children's Hospital after she was taken away from her mother and father, apparently over a disagreement about a diagnosis.
15-year-old Justina Pelletier's parents say their daughter suffers from mitochondrial disease, a controversial disorder that brings on chronic fatigue and severe digestive problems.
Well, the state of Massachusetts took charge of Justina as her parents and doctors at Children's Hospital continue to clash over her diagnosis and treatment.
Justina was diagnosed with mitochondrial disease by Tufts. The Pelletiers brought Justina into the Children's Hospital ER last February, where they say doctors quickly cast aside her diagnosis, instead concluding her problems were of psychiatric origin. Children's brought in DCF and the state took custody of Justina, essentially ruling her parents were committing child abuse by pursuing medical rather than mental health treatment.
DCF takes control of somebody, and you've just fallen into this deep rabbit hole, and there's no way out.
Paramedics wheeled Linda Pelletier from the courthouse this afternoon, minutes after she collapsed upon hearing a judge order her embattled teenage daughter into foster care. While Justina's parents obey a judge's gag order, this minister says the teenager's condition continues to worsen.
They want their daughter with them. There's no argument that she was doing better under their care than under the care of the government.
Children's has declined comment on the complicated case, other than insisting it has the patient's best interests at heart.
Well, Lou and Linda say Boston Children's Hospital kidnapped their daughter, and now they are only allowed to see her for about an hour a week under the supervision of DCFS and a state trooper.
We were escorted out of the hospital by security guards and given a no trespassing, that if we ever came on the property again without permission, we could be arrested.
I feel she's been kidnapped from me and our family.
It was surreal. We showed up at court. The first thing the judge said was, Justina Pelletier is at Boston Children's, so she must be safe there. So for 2 months, we went through this horrific legal nightmare with the City of Boston and the Department of Children and Families. But despite the overwhelming evidence, the judge just said, Massachusetts Department of Children and Families has proved their case. That day in court was pure pandemonium. My wife was overcome with grief and literally passed out on the floor right outside the courtroom.
DCF